Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates.
Welcome to Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates. I'm your host, Mike Iglinski. Tonight, we have a special guest, Larry Harrison. He's actually an independent broker and owner of Harrison Insurance Agency. This is a show that we're doing in response to a couple of questions we had from past viewers regarding the Affordable Care Act. So a little bit of politics, a little bit of insurance, a little bit of health care, and he's going to come help break it down for us a little bit here too.
Mike, thank you for having me here today. It's such an important topic and it's very timely, and I'm here to help.
Absolutely. So we're 2 weeks away from the election, and we really don't know. I mean, I guess this conversation could be nil pretty soon, but as of today, we are facing the Affordable Care Act getting the approval of the Supreme Court, going forward in its typical passage. And, you know, most people just don't understand the document because first thing is it's 900 plus pages full of legalese. And I think that people that, when they don't have an immediate concern, i.e. it's not in their face today, they don't quite understand as far as what's going to be happening. So, but we'll get into that a little bit later. First thing I want to talk to you about, you know, how did you first come into the insurance business and how long have you been involved?
I've been an independent broker for over 20 years, and I got into the business not because I inspired to be an insurance agent. Quite honestly, I got into the business because I didn't like insurance companies saying no. They seemed to say no to my family, my friends, to me, and I didn't really understand it. So I became obsessed with learning insurance. Not that I wanted to sell it, I just wanted to get it. And now I've gotten myself involved with the National Association of Health Underwriters. I'm on their national media board. And the National Association of Health Underwriters, there's 20,000 of us around the country. And we focus on improving people's benefits, saving them money, and keeping everybody in compliance with state and federal laws. So now I make my living selling health insurance. It just happens to be my hobby as well. So
Gotcha.
I spend a lot of time following the different bills that are going through Congress or whatever.
So are you actually, is NAHU involved with a lot of the lobbying efforts and government affairs work too?
We call ourselves citizen lobbyists.
Citizen lobbyists. Being that ultimately your customer is the everyday consumer.
We represent our customers. You know, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, they don't have a lobbyist. So they rely on the National Association of Health Underwriters. We are the only organization that's out there educating the brokers to keep up on these legislative issues, and then we pass that down to the consumer.
Okay. First thing I just want to say, go on record, I don't think that lobbyist is a four-letter word, so.
Okay, fine, and nor do I. Any company that doesn't have a lobbyist is going backwards, and that's why it's so important that a broker has or that a client, a consumer, has a well-informed broker.
I'm sure you've seen quite a bit change over the course of your 20 years working in insurance, particularly in health insurance. Would you say that this Affordable Care Act is the most sweeping bill that you've seen come across that's going to affect the industry?
No question. There's no question about it. 2,700 pages is designed to confuse. If they wanted the consumer to understand what this bill is about, first off, they would have allowed everybody to read it before they signed on, and then they would have been able to explain it. By the time they get all of the, I call it language, in Washington, D.C., they refer to it as regulations. By the time they get all of the regulations into this bill, it'll be 200,000-300,000 pages. It may take 10 years to get the language into it, but it's designed to confuse.
Have you actually gone through and summarized this? Have you?
I've tried. But, you know, I can paraphrase the bill into 3 different categories. It was designed to get more people into the system. So now we can keep our children on the plan until they're 26 years old. We have guaranteed issue for infants to 19-year-olds, no pre-existing condition clauses. So we also have what is called the Pre-Existing Condition Insurance Plan, PCIP.org. For a person that has had no insurance, finds themselves with a pre-existing condition where they've been denied, they get guaranteed issue. My goodness, that one part of the bill would cure 80% of what ails the American system. But there's not enough focus on that. The second part has to do with expanding benefits. So now we have unlimited lifetime benefits. We have free routine physicals, mammograms, PAPs. You can even get a colonoscopy for no charge. Now, does that mean to say doctors are going to work for free? I think not. What it means is doctors are going to get out of the business. And that brings us to the third category, which is costs.
Can I stop you real fast?
Cost has not been addressed, and costs are skyrocketing because of these other two aspects.
We will talk about costs, or at least we can probably speculate as to what you think will happen with costs associated with this going on.
And has happened.
And has happened, correct.
Right.
And we'll also talk about how the constituency across the country might, be affected on the level as far as will we see bigger pools of people getting more health care? As a social benefit versus a fiscal issue, I'd like to talk about that a little bit later.
Absolutely.
One thing, though, I'm going to take issue with, and I do a lot of times when I hear this, is when people say, well, doctors are going to stop practicing. My foil is to that is, well, what are they going to do?
Retire.
Okay, what contingent can afford to retire, though? And frankly, retire, when you start looking at people that make a certain amount of money, especially with practitioners, being doctors, lawyers, accountants, brokers, our lifestyle is usually contingent upon us bringing in regular amounts of money. It's not as if we're building independent companies that will give us residual income based upon the labor from other people's backs. I don't believe that something that the lobby has always told us that, well, if you increase insurance or if you decrease payouts, well, physicians are going to stop practicing. Maybe 65 plus, I could see that. But, the contingent of our physicians today are under that age.
True, of course. However, those that, the days of the Dr. Welby working in rural America are really going away. Those folks are seeing more of the nurses, they're seeing PAs, they're not seeing a primary care physician. So those young folks that are going to school to be a doctor, they're going into being a dentist, they're going into plastic surgery, they're going into things other than primary care, OBGYN. They don't want to deliver babies because of the liability issues. And that's a major problem.
But still, we haven't had a change in the education system from a medical standpoint that allows for people to go into more specialties. Majority of people graduating with a medical doctor's degree will be primary care physicians, Yes, I agree that there's probably a better career path if there's an availability to people to go into specialties or higher paying specialties where, they're not going to have to deal with things like what are going to be reimbursements if I work with, say, the culinary union.
Which leads us to veterinarians.
Veterinarians is a good point. But that being said, again, I don't necessarily see how people say that we're going to simply lose our doctors. Now, if there's an exodus to California, if we had something happening in Nevada, I could see how that might happen, or Arizona. Same climate, but on a federal level, we're not going to see an exodus of our doctors to Canada.
No, of course not. But they'll go into other fields. And it's conceivable that if a person's in rural Nevada, they go to see a PA, physician's assistant, they're going to take fastidious notes. In the morning, they could be on a video conference with a panel of medical doctors, and these PAs will in turn ask questions to the screen, and these PAs that are around rural Nevada, rural America, will be getting the same answer on how to address these symptoms at the same time, and then the next day the patient will come back and they will then address it. But they're not going to be seeing medical doctors. Coming out of medical school, owing 6 digits of educational, student loans is the word I'm looking for. The idea of them wanting to go to rural America is going to be very slim. They're going to have to go to the major cities in order to be compensated to pay off those student loans. If the bill was addressing, let's allow these students to go to rural America and we will take a dollar amount, $50,000 a year, off of your student loans by practicing your medicine in rural America. And maybe you do that on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday you run a private practice. Now we can get doctors that are going to engage in this and go to rural Nevada. Those are the areas that are going to suffer the most.
Okay, and I think that's a valid point. But again, I'm not necessarily of the opinion that every person that has any type of affliction that would lead them to go see a medical doctor necessarily needs to be personally seen by a medical doctor. Physicians' assistants with having a medical director in place or a doctor that's, quote unquote, managing their files with the use of a physician's assistant, if it's more cost effective, typically most people don't need to see the medical doctor.
The consumer's best revenge is to stay healthy. And placebos work, I've heard as much as 50% of the time.
Sure.
So placebos work, and if people are doing all of the right things, 50% of medical expenses are brought on by lifestyle choices. It's the things that we put in our mouth. Excessive living, excessive eating, just hurting people, you're hurting yourselves out on motorcycles or dune buggies and
Sure.
things like that. Now, those are lifestyle choices that we take, but people do get hurt. But it's also that smoking and eating and obesity is a huge, huge problem. And there are more and more of these wellness programs that are being, there's a fly, wellness programs that our employers are going to be implementing because we need a healthier, happier workforce in order to compete on a world level.
I would agree with you that I think that preventive medicine is a wave of the future and a great thing for our country. On that, we're going to take our first commercial break. We'll be right back.
Court reporter with Stovall and Associates.